You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad and writer who has been living in my 1997 Ford van since January 1st of 2019. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living podcast. I am your host, Holly Priestley, and this week we have a familiar face. If you've been hanging out here at the Deliberate Living show for a while, you have seen Mr. Nathan Beers. I recorded with him almost exactly a year ago. And so we have a little bit of an update show, and we're going to dive specifically into one topic. We're going to talk more about dating on the road. This will be the third or fourth dating on the road specific episode that the show is going to have. And I'm really excited to have Beers here because I think his experience with relationships and dating and trying to do all of it while living on the road has been really unique. I think he's got a great perspective on things, and I hope that y'all get something out of this. So if you haven't listened to his first episode with me, we're going to do a little bit of a recap about what's changed in the last year. And then I'm going to link to the original episode also in the show notes so you can go back and listen to that. But hello, Beers.
Howdy. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, thank you for being back. I'm really excited to keep this conversation going. We've tried to record it a few times now, and the universe has just kind of thwarted every effort. So today it's going to work, and it's going to
happen.
Great.
It's happening.
It's happening, and we are going to get this information out to the people because dating on the road is something that a lot of people have questions about. And I can share my experience, but my experience is just one of the many experiences that you can have dating on the road. And so I want to have multiple experiences, and you have multiple experiences with dating on the road. So a year ago, we were talking, and you were in a relationship and helping build out a bus, and that you guys met on the road. And how has that changed? What's going on now?
So a year ago, I was with a partner, and we were building out a school bus as our new home together. And when we recorded, we had gone our separate ways for a week doing our own things. And I was in the lunchbox, which was my Chevy Suburban I'd converted. And literally about 3 days after we recorded, the lunchbox died. The engine itself seized, and there were just too many things to justify repairing it. And then COVID was ramping up. And so she and I quarantined together on a friend's farm, and we were working on the bus and decided that our relationship needed to shift and that we weren't going to pursue the partnership as a long-term thing. And we continued together for a time. I helped her get the bus to a livable state. And then in the middle of quarantine, I moved from South Georgia to Bozeman, Montana, and moved in with some friends. Now I was rigless. I rented a budget truck to head to Montana. I loaded up a motorcycle in the back and was there for a few months, and then got back onto motorcycle to tour over the summer, which is how I spent the first year and a half-ish on the road 5 years ago. And met up with you and Logan during that time out in the woods in Montana, and then spent a good deal of time in Oregon, and bought an ambulance as a new home, already converted, and continued with that kind of all over the West, and was heading back to Florida to take care of some stuff in a storage unit there. And the ambulance had a series of issues arise, and in a matter of weeks, there was about $7,000 of necessary repairs that had piled up. And then it just literally wouldn't crank again after I filled up to fuel. And I was just over the border from Louisiana into Mississippi. And I was fed up. COVID restrictions just made life on the road much more anxiety inducing than it had been in the past, which I think everybody can understand. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need to get off the road for a while. At least right now, it's not serving me well. And so I listed the ambulance for sale real cheap on Facebook Marketplace. And this woman from New Orleans, which is about an hour and a half from where I was, messaged and said, hey, I think this is supposed to be mine. And I called AAA and we had it towed with me with it to New Orleans. My plan was I was going to unpack everything the next day and get a rental car or a rental truck and finish getting to Orlando. And got there, and this woman welcomed me into her friend's home, and they had this beautiful vegan meal ready, and then Lex and I just connected deeply, so unexpectedly. And within a few days, I decided to stay in New Orleans at least a few days longer to see what this was. And within a few days, we had decided that we were going to get a place together. And so since early November, we've been living together here in New Orleans. And it's been magical. Just a really beautiful, very unexpected experience. She bought the Matchbox, which the name for my ambulance, now her ambulance, knowing that it was not mobile in its present condition, intending to use it as just like a workspace. And it's now sitting in our driveway. And when she needs her alone space and alone time, she has that as a completely separate refuge. Her personal space is very important to her. So it's actually been a big deal for us to live together. She did not think that she would live with a partner. And yet she felt compelled to propose it just a few days after we met. Energy, spirits, whatever compelled her. And it resonated.
The universe told you, like, no, you can't leave. You can't get a rental car today, tomorrow, or the next day. I mean, there were so many forces that were kind of like, you have to go to New Orleans. You cannot go to Florida. You need to stop here. Like, stop trying to leave.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I literally went to 3 different rental car companies trying to get a rental car. And there was just one obstacle after another. And she actually offered like to like, cause I don't have any major credit cards, and that presented problems with getting a rental car. And so she actually offered, I'd known her for less than 24 hours. She offered to put the rental car on her credit card. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I don't know why. She's like, yeah, it's weird that I'm offering this, but I don't know. It feels safe. And
you do have a very vibe about you.
Thank you. So yeah, here I am still, almost 4 months later. We've got a lease on this house at least through March. We may extend it through April. And then don't know for sure, but potentially I may be getting back on the road in a different type of configuration soon. She may be going out of the country for some training for a time, and we may go our separate directions for a bit of the year. But yeah, that's the high level, I hope high level update of what the last year has held, some of what the last year has held.
Yeah, it's been a weird year for everyone, for sure. And I think your experience is definitely unique to you, for sure. I've known you for it's 2 years, year and a half.
About 2 years.
Yeah,
year
about
and a half,
2 years now.
like
And I think in that amount of time, I've seen you. I mean, always the extrovert, always like down to meet people, like always have this like warm, bubbly, happy personality. Do you think that contributes in any way to your ability to like forge romantic relationships on the road? Do you think that that's like a key element, or how do you do that?
I honestly don't even know. Like I've had my last two partnerships, we actually, in both instances, I met them because of my rig. Marissa and I met because I was at a vegan cafe and had the lunchbox parked in the parking lot, and she saw it in the parking lot, and something about its style seemed that it went with me, and she was intrigued and came inside and just came up and said, "Hey, is that yours?" And then went from there. And then with Lex, like, she bought my rig and sight unseen just said, "Yes, I'm going to buy this. Bring it here now." And so I don't know. The universe has just conspired in some really welcome and beautiful ways to just use very unexpected things to bring people into my life. I've had, besides these two partnerships, like I'm ethically non-monogamous, tend towards a relationship anarchy of type. But I've had a number of lovers during that time as well. And with those, it's been very organic. It's been friendships that have blossomed into something with some other elements, which has been beautiful. And again, also unexpected. And I just, like it's been a long time since I've dated anybody that I met on an app. I still have Tinder. On my phone. And I don't really know why. I think that, I don't know if it's a weird security thing, but I don't actually meet people and date through dating apps. I've made friendships from them, and in some cases, people that I've met on dating apps, sometimes even years later, it's blossomed into a type of relationship that people would consider like romantic and sexual and whatnot. But yeah, like that method of using dating apps for me just hasn't, I don't know how to relate to people very well in that very constructed, contrived way. But when I am interacting in person with people, there just seems to be a warmth and a welcome and real beauty to interactions when we can just organically meet. And yeah, I still don't really even understand fully in myself what what that is and why that works for me. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I know a number of people who use the dating apps, especially on the road. This is something that we've talked about on the podcast recently. Some people have used the dating apps to like meet new friends, meet like-minded people, maybe find a place to park their rig overnight, or like get a shower, do some laundry,
Right.
Make connections like that. And some people have used them to date. They also didn't work for me that way. But I think that, you know, the elements of like living your life, that you're just doing what you normally do, you know, like with your lunchbox, like at a cafe, or with the matchbox, like this isn't working anymore. It needs to be somebody else's problem. This isn't right for me,
Right.
obviously. Just by like living life and being as true to yourself as you know how to be in that moment, like can allow the universe to like line things up for you, line people up for you. Like, this is who you need to meet now. And then your job is to kind of be open to it. And it seems
Right.
that you are the king of being open to like if I met somebody and 3 days later they were like, you want to move in together? I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
You know, like you are so much more open to like just whatever comes at you, and you're like, well, it feels good, so I'm gonna keep doing it. And I think that is like key. Like, one thing that I've said before on the podcast about dating is, you know, like I'm open to experiences, I'm open to people. Like, I'll make the first move or like open the door, and then they get to walk through it if they want to, whatever. And like I think that I'm pretty open, but I'm definitely like open with a healthy, more than healthy dose of reserve. And I am definitely jealous of your like ability to just like throw caution to the wind and be like, well, this is good, let's do it.
That caution thing, I think there's something to that, where like granted, I am a white presenting cisgendered male, and but like I don't, so I acknowledge that gives me some privilege in this arena, but I don't feel a need or an inclination towards self-protectiveness.
Sure.
I don't, which I'm wondering, like hearing your talking about throwing caution to the wind, if that's part of it, is like I don't like for the most part, like I'm not like whatever happens is gonna happen, and I'm not particularly concerned about getting hurt in the process. And not that I'm not going to get hurt. I might very well get hurt.
I mean, it's life. You're going to get hurt. It's
right, exactly. But I'm not like, I don't often fear of getting hurt doesn't often in relationships. Granted, fear might keep me from jumping out of an airplane or jumping off a cliff with a cord on my back or something like that. But in relationships, fear very rarely prevents me from just going in like full open. Let's see what this is. Like, here I am. Like,
that's so interesting. That's such an interesting concept to me. And I'm sure some of the listeners are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm way more beers in that realm, or I'm way more Holly in that realm. But that to me is completely foreign, you know. But I have other areas like where I'm pretty risk tolerant.
Yeah.
And I have areas in my life where I'm very risk averse. And I'm sure that, you know, if you and I talked long enough, we'd figure out one where you're like, hell no, I would never do that. And I'd be like, why the fuck not? It's going to be fun.
Right. Oh, no doubt. I mean, so many road people, like, I don't know, like, I don't like dirt, like, which is weird. like for somebody who's lived in a van. And I've learned to embrace dirt. I've learned to love dirt, but I don't like dirt. I like to feel clean. I like to feel neat. I don't like to sweat. And so like a lot of road people, like they go out and they go on these awesome adventures, and they go like a friend of mine, like she'll dig these tunnels into mountains to dig up crystals, or people will go out and they'll go, like they live on the road just to like go surfing or rock climbing. And I enjoy that type of stuff in like doses, but like I get dirty and sweaty doing that stuff. And like, I mean, give me a place where I can sit down and have a really good conversation and eat some good food and share some good laughs. And we can be not too hot, not too cold, just right. And like, boom, I am in my element. But yeah, like fear of dirt, of dirtiness, like that keeps me from doing some things for sure. And probably keeps me from being in environments where I might meet really awesome people that maybe I'm not quite as aligned with. I don't know.
I just think that's so interesting that, your approach to relationships is just so like, I'm going to do it. Maybe it'll hurt. Relationships generally, like, even if they're perfect, you're still going to end up hurt at some point for some reason.
Right.
Like human beings, we hurt each other.
Of course.
Usually it's not on purpose, but it happens. And yeah, I think just being like unapologetically beers. Here I am, take me or leave me. Like we're going to vibe or we're not, is a really good way to approach relationships in the first place. I think that having like open lines of communication and like being true with yourself for who you are and what you want and all of that, and then being true to another human being, because especially raised in America or raised in a very religious household, like I know some of us here were, there's a lot of shame around like joy, pleasure, sex, relationships, things like that. Like there's a lot of spoken and
pride, self-confidence.
Yeah. So for you to kind of like overcome a lot of your pre-programming to get to this place where you're, launching into new relationships like it ain't no thing and gonna build your wings on the way down. But then also, like you said earlier, and I definitely want to come back to, the ethically non-monogamous part, like I know through talking to you and knowing you that that's probably not something that would have been okay with your upbringing.
No, not at all.
Yeah, probably none of this is something that you were raised to just think like this is okay, this is normal, this is what everybody should do, could do, wants to do, should have the ability to do if they want to. And so, like, how have you come from, a more conservative, a more like shame-based paradigm and become this version? Like, how did that happen? How did you go from that to this?
That's in its totality, that's a really big, long story.
Yeah.
But some of some of the highlights. I was married twice before in my evangelical Christian days, and in both of those relationships, much more so in my first, there was this attitude. Have you heard of the Billy Graham rule? Mike Pence has been a big proponent of the Billy Graham rule, which is to never be alone in a room with a woman who is not your spouse, not your wife.
Yeah, I have heard that.
And and essentially like that mentality that just is kind of founded on just deep distrust um, that you need to go to those extremes to feel trusting and safe. Like that increasingly doesn't sit well with me. But that mentality was very, very prevalent in my relationships in the past, where I didn't even have women who were friends. And all my life, I've tended to make deeper, for me, richer relationships with women than with men. I do have a couple men in my life that are very dear loves of mine, but most of the closest relationships in my life have almost all been with women. And so in these marriages I was in, where there was a culture that I identify as being toxically monogamous, I was discouraged from being able to pursue the types of connections with people that were meaningful to me. If the most meaningful connections I tend to make are with women, and I'm not allowed to have friends who are women, then like I felt very isolated, continually isolated. And in that isolation, I put an untenable amount of pressure on my partners, on the woman I was married to meet all of my intimacy needs, all of my relational needs, because I didn't have other people in my life that I felt deeply, intimately connected with.
Yeah.
And so I was just this ball of needy anxiety that created a lot of strife. It put such a burden that like there was no chance. Like we were set up to fail with that paradigm. Like, and to fail, whatever that means. And so as I began to really question a lot of the foundational tenets of that faith that I'd been in and had been a big proponent of for 30 something years, the second of those marriages dissolved, and I began to really just rethink everything. But among the things that I was rethinking was really approach to relationships and how relationships and sex, and how much that model that I'd been in did not suit me. And so one of the things with ethical non-monogamy that I really deeply appreciate is that it acknowledges that generally like you're not going to find someone who like you meet all of each other's intimacy needs. Like there's going to be intimacy needs and intimacy wants. That there's going to be areas that where I'm not equipped or want to meet a partner's intimacy needs in a certain way, and where they're not equipped or want to meet my intimacy needs in a certain way. And being able to encourage one another joyfully to say, yeah, I can't do that, or I'm doing this right now. I don't have the energy to interact with that, but you have these other people in your life that you're close to, that you're intimate with, that you can. And it's not just about sex thing at all.
Yeah,
like
intimacy is
that.
not just sex. Like it's
Right.
emotional, it's mental, it's so much more than just like being naked with somebody else.
Right. Right. It's being able to talk through to talk through and to listen through um, hard things in life, or to celebrate with one another, to go out and create together, or to recreate together, or uh, to cuddle one another,
Yeah.
to enjoy shared passions and projects and stuff that aren't connected to that may not be connected to a particular predefined relationship in your life. And so I really love that acknowledgement and encouragement that exists within this mindset for me. And
It takes a lot of pressure off of your partner, and it takes a lot of pressure off of you. You know,
right,
I can't be everything for this person, and they can't be everything for me. And
right,
like that toxic monogamy is definitely, something that I think a lot of Americans especially have grown up with. But yeah, you expect one person to like be your best friend and your therapist and your lover and, your partner, roommate, like
right.
helping you cook or clean or just like, like survive life. And that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody else. And then if you're also trying to meet those needs of someone else, if your goal is to be the everything for one other person, you are definitely sacrificing yourself and your own needs. Your needs aren't being met, you're not meeting theirs, it's impossible. Like, we've just put so much pressure on ourselves and our relationships, it's no wonder that it doesn't work.
Right. We had a scenario, Lex and I had a scenario, like we're nesting partners, we're living together, we're romantically sexually involved.
That's so cute.
We but like here in New Orleans, like she has another partner, she has other loves here, uh and a recently, like she was really just being tormented by some unhelpful thoughts and energies, and it had been going on for a couple of days, and she was just in a miserable state. And I had been trying to be as supportive as I could, and I didn't know, like I didn't know what else I could do. And then I remembered, oh, she has other support here. Like and I was able to reach out to her other partner, to another love, and say, hey, this person that we all love is really struggling, and I don't seem to have the tools right now to support her in the ways that she needs. Can y'all help? And I love that I live in a world, that I've created a world that I'm living in, that's a thing that happens.
That's so nice. It's very like it takes a village,
Yeah.
Like it takes a village to raise a kid, I think is how the original phrase goes. But like it just takes a village to like raise an adult.
Yes,
support an adult. That's awesome. So when you first started being ethically non-monogamous, and I'm sure it's an ongoing thing, right? You have to keep talking. You have to keep.
Oh yeah, requires
aware of your
a lot of communication.
Yeah, and you have to be aware of your own feelings. You have to be aware of their feelings. You have to know how to communicate your feelings to their feelings. You have to know how to receive their communication.
Yes.
And like not take things personally, but like take responsibility. And like, how do you take responsibility without taking things personally? Like, there's so many like things that you have to address. And when it's like, the thing about being non-monogamous is that most like mainstream culture really only hears about it when it goes wrong, right? Like, oh, we opened up our relationship and you know, he met somebody else, she met somebody else, somebody got jealous, like things blew up, right? You only hear about non-monogamy when it doesn't work. You don't
Right.
necessarily hear about it when it does work because it's working so well, you don't hear about it, right? So I think we need to like talk more about it and like bring it more to the surface of like this is a thing that can happen and it's so totally okay. And like even if you're in it and it's going really well, you're a human. There will be
Right.
rough patches, there will be turbulence, and like
Right.
having somebody in your life or multiple somebodies who like can receive you in that state, you know, or like reach out to your partners like, I don't know what to do, please help, we need to bring the team together.
Right.
You know, all for one for all. Like it's just such a cool thing when it works, but we never hear about it working.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's part of that is just being in such a monocentric culture. The stories that are celebrated and shown, like the love stories on movies and TV and stuff, most of them are very monocentric. When there are open relationships or polyamorous, non-monogamous relationships shown, most of the time, they're shown around the turmoil and and stuff, because that's the stuff that makes exciting stories.
Yeah.
But it's but yeah, like there is so much beauty in relating to other people this way. And what you were talking before about like the around the communication and being able to listen and to receive, and it's a continual process of recognizing my own ego and recognizing where my ego is coming into play, and where my insecurities are coming in, and uh where fears are coming in, and being able to identify those, and like you said, take responsibility for the way I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and when necessary, like to also feel the freedom and the encouragement to make specific requests, and to be not attached to the outcome, which sometimes that's really hard. Of hey, I I'm feeling X, and if you could do Y, it would really help me to not feel X so uncomfortably. And being able to make that type of request, and maybe they will and maybe they won't, and
Yeah.
to be able to have the wherewithal and the internal confidence and fortitude, maybe is the word, uh, to let that be, and to have other
Mm-hmm.
people in life that, like, sometimes what you want is really something very specific from this very specific person, and sometimes, often, you're not going to get exactly that, and to be okay with that. And something that has been really beautiful for me in this relationship specifically is the last couple months there's been a real opening to examining needs versus wants, in a way that's been far more productive for me than any exploration I've tried doing of that has been before. Where, as I began to really delve into, like, I personally have struggled a lot to distinguish clearly needs versus wants. And I would think about need, like, what is it that I need? Well, I mean, all I need is food and shelter, and like just like these very basic things. And so, no, I don't need this. So, like, it feels like almost anything that is a want. It's not a need. And something that Lex pointed out, I'm going to be writing on this soon, I believe, but was how those things like the food and shelter, that's what I need to keep this body alive.
Yeah.
But there are what other things am I trying to keep alive, and what is needed to keep that alive? What is needed to keep a friendship alive? What is needed to keep a romantic sexual partnership alive? What do I need for these things? And also really delving in and addressing, getting down to the fears that I had around fearing that if I could distinguish needs from wants, and if I can communicate that this is just a want, then all I'm going to get is just my bare needs met. And none of my wants are going to be met. And like this fear that I had around that really, for me, kept me from wanting to delineate clearly my needs from my wants. And as I've been doing this and stepping more and more into this, it's been really, really beautiful, because I've been able to recognize that, okay, here is the underlying need.
Yeah.
Here is how I would want to have that need met. Is this the only way to have that need met? No. If the person that I'm trying to keep whatever it is alive with, it's a relationship, the person that I'm trying to keep this alive with, if they don't feel alive, if they don't feel aliveness and in alignment with me, with helping me meet this need in the way of this specific want, maybe we can find another request that around another want that can help to meet the actual need. And I have loved this exploration. It has really been so beautiful and beneficial to me.
I think that is such a good way to put it, as far as like, yeah, you don't need very much to keep your body alive, but there's so much more to just keeping your body alive, keeping your friendships alive, keeping your romantic relationships alive, keeping your creativity alive, keeping your soul alive, all of these things. And I think that I definitely am kind of the same way. I have a tendency to be like, well, I don't need that. That's fine. Like,
right.
I can make do with what I have, or I can make it work. Like, I don't need I don't need Logan. I don't need him. I could do life by myself. I have been doing it by myself for a long time. This is fine, but I really do like having him around. It is fun, but then, just knowing like what is a need to keep your relationship alive. What is a way that you think it could be met? What does your partner think about that? How do they think it can be met? What are all the other ways you can meet it? And like that just like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It like just fleshes out like what's going on. It like rounds out the plate. It gives more nutrients. It gives more options. It just gives you a much more like full and rich experience of whatever it is that you're trying to experience.
Yeah. And navigating that is rarely not messy in my experience.
Yes,
at least so far. But like just last night, I had a very specific request around a need that I have in my romantic with a partner that I'm choosing to do life with. And she, for various reasons, like wasn't feeling aligned with that. And in both of our heads, all these stories were playing out. And like there was a story playing out. Well, if she's not willing to do this, to meet me in this, it feels like such a small thing, then it means that this core need isn't important, and that this whole thing is just is just smoke in the air, and none of it means anything. And she had stories playing out where she was feeling that like she was struggling with stories of guilt around, well, if I did this here, what would it mean about all the other times when I haven't done this, when it would have been meaningful, and feeling and so it was just we both had these stories playing out, and it got charged, and we got upset, and we didn't want to, we had just cuddled up to watch a movie when this came up, and then we didn't even want to be close to each other, and we sorted through it, and we got to the root of right now we love each other, and right now we are choosing each other, and right now that's what's important. And
bring it back to that
not
aspect,
right? And sometimes soon, when it's not midnight and we're not tired and we haven't both had long exhausting days, and it's not a time when all we really want to do is cuddle up and watch a movie, let's come back to this, and let's see what, now that we can empathize with each other's stories a little bit more, let's also see what we can do on ourselves to help detach somewhat from that story, that isn't inherently a true story. And see if we can find a way that we can agree and come together around how to meet this need. And it's messy, and it hurt, and it was uncomfortable. We didn't like it, but we ended up the end of the night holding each other in each other's arms and falling asleep 10 minutes into the movie. And
spinning those stories in your head over and over again is exhausting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. What are the top maybe 3 to 5 pieces of advice you would give to someone maybe on the road or not, about meeting a romantic interest? You're very good at it, and I feel like your approach has evolved over time, and it seems like you're in this really secure, creative, comfortable, uncomfortable space right now. And I think that, what little nuggets of wisdom do you have for someone who would like to get there?
Tell yourself, spend time every day telling yourself how much you love you. Confidence rooted in self-love is, I think, key. So key. I used to go and I used to look at I used to have very low confidence, a lot of insecurities, remnants of that always still there, that come up and I have to address and deal with. But I used to look at myself and say, "You're a fucking badass. You are a fucking badass." And a big part of me, every time I would say that, would be like, "No, I can't hear that, because no, I'm not." And I had to say it again and again until I believe it. I am a fucking badass, and I'm awesome. And I had to convince myself that was true, so that I can show up in the world in a way that where I feel alive, and where I feel like I'm not seeking where I'm not having a neediness around every interaction that I have with other people, where I'm not seeking that validation from whoever I might meet. So that's number one for sure. And in doing that, know what it is that you love to do. Go explore different things, try different things, figure out what it is that you love. I love variety. I love people. I'm not, there's not a lot of activities myself that like, that's my thing. Like I've been rock climbing, like I play board games. I make art. Like I do some of these things, but none of them are like, I go dancing, I do acro yoga. Like what I've learned is that my thing is being with people I enjoy. And the activity around it, for the most part, doesn't really matter if I'm with people, because that's what I love. And which this year has presented a lot of complications with that. But so that's one of the big ones, is know what you love and go out and do it. A quick anecdote. Another van friend was just, she and her partner were sharing on their Instagram story yesterday about how they met, and they're both on the road, but they both have like small motorcycles that they carry with them, and they met at a gas station filling up their filling up their tanks, and I love it. I love it so much. And yeah, they're just out in the world doing what they love, and they cross paths.
That's how Logan and I met.
Yeah.
Just out in the world doing things that we wanted to do. That's kind of how we stayed together too, was just like, we just didn't stop hanging out because we like doing enough of the same stuff, and we like each other enough, you know? I mean, I think that's how friendships or romantic relationships work.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh man, I'm trying to think if there's a third.
There doesn't have to be. I just
okay. Yeah, I think that's what I got there.
Yeah.
I hope it's helpful.
Yeah, I hope so. I feel like, I mean, as always, I feel like with you, I could just talk for hours. And there's so many more things I want to touch on and stuff. But I feel like as far as like relationships and dating on the road goes, and especially like being ethically non-monogamous, we haven't specifically talked about that on the show yet. And I think it's a growing thing. I think it's a growing way of being. I think it's something that more and more people are curious about. And of course, you know, like your mileage may vary. How you decide to be ethically non-monogamous, or if you decide to be, you know, might look totally different than the way, you know, Beers and Lex are doing it. But it's another option. And I feel like, just as with most other things, like representation matters. So like hearing about people who are doing that lifestyle, whatever that lifestyle happens to be, is always better. So I'm really happy to have had, you know, such a good deep dive into like how you're doing it and like how you're going to continue and all of that. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up?
One other thing, I did mention a term before that I'd just like to give a little bit of context around. I've used the term relationship anarchy. And essentially it can mean different things to different people. For me, what it means is that I don't subscribe to, or at least I try to continually question external societal expectations around how relationships need to be hierarchy. That to me, the like one of the things is like, if you're having sex with somebody, then that person is inherently more important in your life than somebody that you're not. And to me, like the three most important women in my life, one is a partner that I have sex with. Another is a dear love that we're very physically intimate with. Another is another dear love that we'll hug, and that's as close as we get, like physically. And they are all deeply, deeply, deeply important to me. And then I have other beautiful, beautiful loves in my life that I like. Some of them are part-time lovers, and I love that. And we let the relationships be what they will be, and we let them have the elements that arise to let that each relationship live to its fullest. And that's, to me, that's what a lot of that's my approach to relationship anarchy, that is connected to the non-monogamy, but is somewhat different.
Yeah, I feel like, so I'm going to paraphrase just to confirm what relationship anarchy is. And that's basically not taking society's definition of what relationships and their hierarchies are for yourself, like making your own rules as far as what that means.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And and like that there's this societal attitude that of just friends.
Yeah. They're
that
just
kind
friends,
of
right?
Right. That like puts friendships like below like a romantic relationship, which it's a rejection of that idea. That intimate relationships are important, and the form that intimacy takes doesn't have any inherent effect on how important that relationship is and to you in relation to other relationships, if you even choose to think of relationships in relation to one another.
I love it. I think that is just flipping the script on a lot of things. And I mean, it's very similar to flipping the script by moving into a matchbox or a lunchbox or a motorcycle.
Right.
And right, like you're told, like you're supposed to want these things. You're supposed to want like a salaried, benefited cubicle job that allows you to buy the house in the suburbs that, you know, has all the stainless steel appliances and the white picket fence. And you're supposed to want all of these things. And like, maybe that doesn't actually work for you. If you want them, great, go get them. If you don't want them, great, don't go get them. You know,
it's deliberately creating the life that I want.
Yes. Fabulous. Mic drop. Wrap it up on that little package, because I think that, that's the whole point of what we're doing here, like in life, but also with the show.
Yeah.
Here's where can people come follow you online if they want to hear more about your story and see what next?
Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is really the only platform I actively engage on. And even that, my posts have been sloppy. But watch my stories. I post my story almost every day.
You do. I watch your stories.
I'm not posting my feed. But the.nomadic.beers is my Instagram.
Great.
the.nomadic.beers.
And I'll link to those in the show notes, or that, just the one as well. But again, thank you so much, Beers, for being here again on the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. If anybody has any additional questions or they want to talk more about anything that we talked about today, send him or I a message, leave a comment or some such. Maybe we'll come back for part 3 with Beers about, relationships and all of those things. As always, if you got value out of this episode, please do give it a thumbs up or a 5 stars or whatever it is on the platform that you are consuming it on. That helps us get seen by the algorithms. Also, next week is a very, very exciting week for the podcast. It is our podcast anniversary. It will be our 52nd episode, and exciting things are going to be happening over the next week. I'm going to start offering some exciting giveaways from some of the guests that we've had on the show over the past year. And next week, I'm going to talk all about podcasting and what I've learned and how I create it and what the plans are moving forward and all of those things. So stay tuned in, subscribe, share, like, comment, all the things, and tune in next week for some very exciting stuff. Bye. We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on YouTube, or sign up for email updates every time something new is published. I'll see you next time on Deliberate Living, and until then, keep your life on the DL too.